Who is the worst team on the current Formula 1 grid? Haas, Sauber, or is it the Alpine? The right answer to the question is undeniably Aston Martin.
Can you stay out on this condition? Can you stay out?
Yes!
A team with new ideas that fail, always looking to buy the best engineers and drivers while being unable to develop its own race car. But as Christian Horner and Max Verstappen are on the way out of the Milton Keynes-based factory, things for Daddy Stroll could be falling in place. And it all started with a single man more than 1 year ago. Lawrence Stroll has been at the helm of the Aston Martin racing team since the days of Racing Point. After purchasing the former Force India team, Stroll rebranded, brought in his son from Williams, and added Sergio Perez to the mix. The team would be branded the Pink Mercedes, literally copying large parts of the actual Mercedes, which propelled them to 4th in the championship. In fact, Racing Point would go on to hand Sergio Perez his first Formula 1 victory in the most unlikely of conditions.
Last place at the end of lap 1 comes home to win the Sakir Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, wow, what a race!
Nevertheless, it handed Perez the opportunity to move to Red Bull, but for Lawrence Stroll, transforming Racing Point into a championship contender was still the #1 priority. So, Lawrence brought in Sebastian Vettel, but the car didn't perform, and after the rebrand, Aston Martin continued lingering in the bottom half of the pack. Following Vettel's retirement,
I announced my retirement from Formula 1 by the end of the 2022 season.
Lawrence once again splashed the big bucks, bringing in none other than the legend himself, Fernando Alonso. Once on board for the 2023 season, the wily old fox proved exactly why he was one of the best drivers on the grid, driving the Aston Martin to a podium position on 8 occasions during the season. This was far more impressive than teammate Lance Stroll, and proved exactly why Fernando Alonso was one of the all-time greats. But this all faded as the 2024 season rolled around, and Fernando once again found himself driving in the middle of the pack. Finally, Lawrence Stroll got the message, realizing that something big needed to change, and since Lance is never to be blamed, even when receiving advice from Alonso.
Lance, catch them.
Lance is 4 seconds back from Hamilton. I think it's tough with 3 to go at the end of this one.
Copy. Still amazing.
So, if it isn't Lance who is the problem while Alonso gets the car in the points, it must be the car. Fortunately, Lawrence Stroll had the big bucks, and one man was about to become a free agent. Midway through 2024, following the announcement of Lewis going to Ferrari, Aston Martin stole some of his shine when this happened.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, she's coming up from... That's good. Excellent.
Good morning.
The legendary Adrian Newey was finally announced and signed to be part of the Aston Martin team, but for new Formula 1 fans, this move might not make any sense, so let me explain. Since joining Formula 1 in 1987, Adrian Newey has immediately made an impact. He started his career with Williams, helping to build and lead the team to some major success. Most notable were the 4 championships he'd won with the team between 1992 and 1997. Following this, he also moved to McLaren, with the likes of Mika Hakkinen, whom he'd helped to 2 more championships. This made Newey one of the most successful engineers on the grid, and he had already racked up a trophy room big enough to challenge, well, Haas. But Newey didn't just stop there. Following the 2005 purchase of Jaguar by the Red Bull energy drink company, Christian Horner became the youngest ever team principal on the grid. His first course of action was to bring in Newey, who'd arrived at the Milton Keynes-based factory midway through 2006. Unfortunately, the car was already built, but Newey would continue asserting himself, designing every car that followed. His designs would steer Red Bull and Sebastian Vettel to 4 drivers' championships on the bounce before regulation changes once again shifted the advantage to Mercedes. Nevertheless, Newey stuck around, and by 2021, it was his time to shine, helping Verstappen to title #1.
A brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world. As the ground effect era kicked off, Newey would help Max to 3 more titles, but by the end of 2023, the legendary designer was seeking a new challenge. Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll took advantage of the opportunity and brought Newey on board. Now, having an engineer like Adrian Newey is great, but you need the team to support him, and with Lance Stroll not exactly the best driver on the grid, the plan might seem doomed, or does it? Since 2025, things have changed so much that the trifecta of Red Bull success might now be within reach for Aston Martin.
We can literally make a video discussing everything that went wrong with Red Bull, but the team basically disintegrated. The car stopped working, Verstappen claimed that it was undrivable, and teams like McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes simply took over and dominated. Max was left fighting for the midfield positions. Finally, it was revealed that Verstappen had a clause in his contract that could see the Dutchman leave Red Bull and perhaps seek greener pastures. Many believe that to combat this, Red Bull again pulled the trigger.
Going on, and there's sort of problems in the team, words you're getting sort of out of Team Verstappen and others. I'm quite sad about it, if I'm honest. I consider Christian a friend, and he's done an incredible job there for 20 years.
Yes, Christian Horner found himself on the chopping block, and while the exact reason is not known, it could be tied to his misconduct with a fellow worker the year prior. Or at least, this could be the reason Red Bull gives the public. While they didn't just fire him, but rather assigned him to a new position within the team, it does open the door for Horner to move. Meanwhile, Verstappen has a contract clause that suggests the Dutchman needs to be in P3 in the championship if he is to stay with Red Bull. This is currently hanging by a thread. If the Dutchman doesn't make P3 in the championship, it could open the door for him to finally move on to another team. Currently, Mercedes is leading the charge, having already approved a budget with their internal board to sign Max. However, Lawrence Stroll and Aston Martin could play their cards right and capitalize on the situation. Lawrence Stroll has already advocated for signing Max Verstappen. If the Dutchman becomes available, it could theoretically be possible to sign him. And now that Horner is also available, Aston Martin might have just been handed the keys to the castle. But why do we say so? Well, Newey has won a whopping 13 Drivers' Championships and 12 Constructors' titles with cars he has designed. Meanwhile, Christian Horner has brought in 8 Drivers' titles and 6 Constructors' Championships, but all of these were won with designs made by Adrian Newey. Max Verstappen's stats are already known to most of the world, but there is a case for the Dutchman perhaps being one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport. With Newey already signed to the Aston Martin Formula 1 team, it means that Lawrence Stroll now only needs to add Max and Christian if he is to have the band back together. This plays right into the narrative of Lawrence Stroll, who prefers buying himself into the championship and doesn't shy away from spending big money. However, there is one single problem with this. First, we must acknowledge that the signing of Adrian Newey is already a step in the right direction. It could theoretically allow the team to be hyper-competitive heading into the 2026 regulation changes. On the drivers' front, no one really knows the true extent of Lance Stroll's Formula 1 contract, and Fernando Alonso just recently renewed his contract for the 2026 season. This leaves Stroll with one massive decision. Should he get rid of his son and pursue Verstappen, or wait it out after 2026 and hope that Max is available once Alonso retires from the sport? Mercedes is also a big problem in this story, and Toto Wolff is pretty adamant about bringing the Dutchman to the Brackley factory. In fact, recent reports suggest that Mercedes is willing to offer millions of dollars to get the signature of the Dutchman, and with a proven car, the deal might be the best for Verstappen's career. On the other hand, there is the case of Christian Horner. Many have been wondering if Horner is willing to stick to Red Bull, or if he is willing to negotiate with new teams to get back to the position of team principal. If all these puzzle pieces fall in place, Lawrence Stroll could pull off a masterstroke by signing not only Newey, but adding Horner and Verstappen to the mix, a proven team of success. Now, what do you think of this situation? Would it make sense to sign Max and Christian, or is it impossible for Aston to capitalize on the situation? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to check out the next video to see how bad the situation is turning for George Russell.